It's Kenner's Star Wars Vintage Landspeeder from 1978. This is a really cool toy. I remember seeing this toy in a commercial on TV and I thought it was really cool. I liked how it had the simulated hover effect using spring-loaded wheels, which I thought was really cool. And of course, when August came around, the toy catalogs came out, I went looking and sure enough, they had a lot of Star Wars toys in 1978 for that season. And one of them was the Landspeeder. And I remember reading the description of it back then. Suspension design and spring-loaded wheels transform this non-flight model into a bouncy hovercraft. That's awesome. Of course, it went for $4.99 back then, which is $23.75 in 2024 dollars, which it's not too bad of a price for a toy. I think the Power of the Force 2 one was probably about that much as well, if I remember right. 23 or 20 or something like that. I can't remember. I bought the Power Force 2 Landspeeder some time ago, but I don't have it anymore. But anyway, we're talking about the vintage ones, dummy. This was my number 2 toy that I had on my list from episode 41 of the Toy Tune podcast, where I talk about the original Star Wars movie. My experience with going to see it with my brother, and I talk about the top 10 toys I had based from that original movie. I'll be doing one on The Empire Strikes Back sometime in the future, but I mainly talked about the original Star Wars release back in 1977 and the toys I had based on that movie. And the Landspeeder was high on my list of my favorite toys I had back then. It's still a great toy to this day. It has a really cool box. I wish I had a box for this one. I don't. I've been trying to find maybe a reproduction box or something like that to put it in, to put it up on my shelf. Maybe I'll find a actual one sometime in the future and I can just exchange it out. You never know. But I like the box design. It shows the action figures in the toy and they're being interrogated by this stormtrooper standing there. And you can kind of pretend Obi-Wan's saying, "These are not the droids you're looking for." That kind of stuff. Really great toy. So let's take a closer look at the toy. Okay, here's a nice close-up view of the toy itself. It looks really awesome sitting on the table here. Like I said, it's one of my favorite toys I had back in the day, back in 1978. Look at the inside, you can see there's a lot of nice decals to simulate the dashboard and the center console. Got some nice little bucket seats here that do have foot pegs in the back, so you can put C-3PO back here and R2-D2. Side view looks really nice. Kenner did a really good job in making this toy make it look like the movie version. Nice clear plexiglass windshield. We have a compartment up here for the engine bay. A little push button here. Pops it open. And there's the engine bay. Nice little sticker in there. I used to keep like extra blasters in there, or I would stuff my allowance money inside of here to hide it. I had allowance money stuffed in all my toys. Really nice chrome accents, all simulated chrome for the sides here. Did a really nice job on the paint. It doesn't look as worn as the movie one did, but that's okay. You can weather it or whatever you want to do with it to make it look more movie accurate. Here in the center we have our little lever, which will extend the wheels out the bottom to give you that floating effect. And it's actually very well done. Pop this forward. Each wheel has its own suspension, basically. When you set it down on the ground, it does like a little floaty thing. I remember when I got this toy back in the day, I loved that effect. And it actually rolls really nice, especially on the hardwood floor. It rolls really well. That was such a cool effect. So when you want to retract them, you just pull the lever back, the wheels go back up. And this is a good way to set it on your shelf or whatever, so it'll roll off when you put it on display. Pretty awesome toy. Now, isn't that an incredibly awesome toy? Really cool. Now, when I did the episode 41 of the Toy Tune podcast, when I talked about this land speeder a little bit, I mentioned there about doing an experiment with this for the science fair. Back when I was growing up, my parents both worked, and they didn't really want to leave me at home very much in the summertime because I would get myself in trouble constantly. I remember one time my mom left me home by myself when she went to work. She came home with food dye all over the ceiling in the kitchen. And she asked what I did. I was like, well, I was trying to make a model volcano using baking powder and vinegar and all this other kind of stuff. And it had an explosive effect where it blew food dye all over the ceiling of the kitchen. It took quite a while to get that food dye out of the tiles. But anyway. And after that, they started sending me to the summer school. So I'd go to regular school, 9 months out of the year. Then starting in June through early August, I would go to summer school. And they had like these different courses you could take. And I always did the science courses because I really enjoyed anything to do with science when I was a kid. And they would have these science fairs. Well, this one science fair, I decided to do something with my land speeder to show magnetic levitation. Now, my dad, being a electronics repairman, he would repair TVs, microwaves, ovens, you name it. If it was electronic, my dad repaired it. He had a lot of extra parts laying around in his workshop in the basement. And one of my favorite things to do was get the old magnets out of the microwaves. They had little magnetrons in there. They had these big round cylindrical magnets in there. Really powerful things. So I got a whole bunch of those. I made a wooden board to make a track, and I put all these little magnets in this track. I put little guardrails to keep the land speeder from going from one side to the other. Then I used these refrigerator magnets. Now, in the old time refrigerators, they had these long strip magnets that would seal up against the metal of the door. They were inside this little plastic, flexible plastic tube. I strip them out of there, and I glued them to the bottom of my land speeder, the opposite pole of what the magnets were in my track. And it would actually get the land speeder to hover over it. It didn't hover very high because it was a little heavy in the rear end. But I had to mess with it quite a bit to get the weight to balance out, to get the thing to set level on the track. You can sit there and blow on it, and the thing will just kind of drift along the magnets. Now, of course, with the interference of the little guardrails on the side, it wouldn't go very far because of the friction. But it showed the magnetic levitation that I was trying to demonstrate. I did a little report on it, had pictures. I talked about magnetic levitation, all that kind of stuff. And the land speeder was like a little demonstration to see what I was talking about. My teacher really liked it. I think I got second place in that science fair. I don't remember who got first place. It was something really cool, but I don't remember what it was. But anyway, I'm rambling. Anyway, that's the vintage Star Wars land speeder from 1978. One of my favorite toys. I still love this thing to this day. Did any of you have this toy back then? Did you grow up back in the 70s with Star Wars like I did and had this toy? What are your thoughts about the toy? Are you from a later generation that grew up after the original trilogy, but you got into the original trilogy at a later date, and maybe you picked up the Power of the Force 2 land speeder, which is also a nice land speeder in its own right. It has a lot more details to it. If you had that land speeder, tell me stories about that when you got your land speeder toy, any kind of neat adventures you did with it, all that kind of stuff. Oh, and if you're wondering whatever happened to my original land speeder, it did not survive having AA rocket engines taped to it. I want to make it like an actual jet hovercraft. So I put some AA engines from my model rockets on there, shot them off. Thing went flying across the yard and hit a tree. Nothing but pieces everywhere. But anyway, hope everybody enjoyed listening to this or watching this video. As always, everyone, thanks for watching. Son of a Tuscan.
The Force goes with us. Yeah!
Kenner's new Star Wars Land Speeder. Action figures each sold separately.